Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your podcast all about Babylon 5. We are so happy that you are back listening to us. I am Jesse. Joining me, as always, is my buddy Lou.
Hello, everyone.
And the podcast mom, Karen.
Hello.
And we are talking Babylon 5, as always. It is in the fourth episode of the fourth season, falling toward Apotheosis.
Apotheosis.
I knew I'd get it wrong.
You confirmed it just before we started.
Apotheosis. I knew I'd get it wrong.
You confirmed it just before we started.
I know. And the elevation of someone to Vine status is the definition.
Yeah, but it also means the top of something, like the best something can be, which kind of has a double meaning in this episode.
Does.
So
there's also a double meaning in that there's two characters that are trying to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
One intentionally and one unintentionally.
Yeah, I think this was a pretty good one. I was asked by someone, have you told Lou and Karen that they thought this was the last season? So as a reminder, yes, they are aware that at this point, as JMS is writing it, he thinks this is the final season.
Right. Which is why he's shoving things into each episode.
Quick thoughts. Lou, what did you think of this one?
I'm pretty jazzed for a couple of reasons. And one's a total non sequitur because it's the first week of December. And for the first time since 1928, we haven't had snow yet. So it's amazing.
Hey.
It's amazing. And this episode just was like a cherry on the top to me because we got a lot of Garibaldi. And I thought it was a lot of good Garibaldi. And I like the prickly nature between him and Sinclair or Sheridan.
Sheridan.
Sheridan. You think I would get it after all this time? I got to keep
Apotheosis.
Yes, and a lot of stuff went down in this episode, and it was a lot of good stuff.
All right, Karen, how about you?
Also, Zahadum.
Yes,
Zahadum.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to agree with Lou. I thought this was hitting on all cylinders, as it were. There are some things alluded to. There are also some things that come to fruition. And there are some things that make me wonder what's coming next. We got some confirmation about things. While he's shoving things into each episode, some of them seemed hurried. Some of them seemed like there's stuff that could be taken out. And some of them just seemed like a normal episode. And I think this one made me feel like it's a normal episode, just chugging along at a really good pace. That's my thoughts.
I have a question for you, Jesse.
Yes.
Does this revelation in this episode about the relationship with Lorien have anything to do with the basis of what the animated movie jumps off from?
A little.
A little? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, don't get too into that because I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, I haven't either.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to.
I will
here.
tell you that I don't know how much is spoilery and what's not.
Okay.
The 20 years is significant. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Right.
And I believe JMS plays fair.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So he's not bending things.
I'm even more psyched to see that movie now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We can watch it after this season, or do we have to? I keep asking but I think we have to wait for the whole thing.
Yeah, I think you have to wait for 5.
But there's a movie we can watch.
There is a movie called In the Beginning, which we can wait after this season because that's when it was shown. It was shown when TNT, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. And if someone knows, please send an email to us because I want to see if we can see a difference in the storytelling that, he had, because what happened is they filmed the final episode of the series this season.
Yeah, you mentioned that before. Yeah.
And then when they got it renewed, they pulled it and put it as they did another episode
for the end of season 4.
Yeah.
And then at the end of season 5,
Sleeping in Light is the final episode.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it is.
That he had enough lead time to do that, do the old switcheroo.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I was at a convention that had any Babylon 5 connection. Miro Vorlon was there, and I had not seen any Babylon 5, but I was going because Peter David was going to be there. And she said, now that we know how everything ends, it's going to be an interesting season.
Oh, I was cool.
Like, oh, wow. What does that mean?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. And she didn't say anything. That's all she said.
Because it hadn't aired yet, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. And it ends up, the way it works out, TNT shows it on Thanksgiving.
Oh, all right.
Because TNT was doing a new episode every day. All right.
Yeah, and they didn't skip holidays like networks do.
Exactly. All right, so let's start out with Vorlons are just blowing up, destroying worlds, going crazy.
They are the worst. That's all I can say.
I will tell you that I remember being really shocked that the turn of the Vorlons and the new Kosh, right? This was Okesh was just like, okay, is this just a bad egg? Like the Vorlons have to be good. They're angels. And I was shocked that they were evil.
I mean, they are the worst, but they do have a methodology behind their madness.
Yeah.
They want to get rid of the shadows.
Yeah.
And so in order to do that, I feel like this is the path to take.
Yeah, and I thought Franklin's point last time about this is medical surgery. If you kill a few healthy cells, it doesn't matter because in the long run you're helping things. But when you're talking about people, that seems a little callous.
They're evil. I'm just saying.
So I think there's a lot to unpack in this story, and I don't really know how to parse it, except let's talk about that. I think one of the most interesting scenes is Michael not trusting Lorian and wanting to know why the captain isn't trusting him. And the idea of the captain, the reason I haven't told you is because of what's coming up, but thought was, well, you're everyone else.
Why leave him out?
Yeah, Kosh, couldn't he read everyone else's mind? But Garibaldi being a good soldier, okay, so let me get this straight. You want me to go with a small crowd, politely ask the ambassador to leave. He's going to kick our asses, and you aren't going to tell me why. Ours is not to ask why, but ours is to do or die. Lou, let's start with you, since Garibaldi is in many ways your favorite character. And any way you want to talk about this, just go all the way. Let's just talk Michael's new personality, or is it his old personality? Susan even asked, is he a little more prickly than ever? And I thought, Jeff Conway, Zach, look, he's been through a lot of shit. Give him some slack. Lou, wherever you want to go with Mr. Garibaldi.
Yeah. Where do I want to start with this? I think I'll touch on the comments that you were just making about the Vorlons and how you were surprised at the turn that they've taken. And I'm totally on board with you with that. I'm really surprised by that. I think, though, that what has happened is the balance of power was upset when Sheridan went to Zadoom and did what he did. So there may have been like a balance of power between the Vorlons and the Shadows, and Sheridan is now upset that. And so now the Vorlons feel like they have to be proactive. And it's a little eerie how much it mirrors what's going on in Israel right now. And it's basically the same methodology that the Vorlons are employing that the Israelis are employing. So that is pretty eerie and amazing. And history repeats itself, and we see it again here. So that's my aside. I just didn't want to lose that before I started talking about the Garibaldi. I got to admit, when I initially heard Sheridan's plan with Garibaldi, I'm going like, seriously, if they could all die. And I guess he's okay with that, given the stakes. As he said, billions of lives are at cost. So rationalized his decision with that, with Sheridan's decision with how to handle the initial encounter with Okesh. And it was basically just to get him, Okesh, riled up, which is interesting because we've never really seen Vorlons that react in a human manner. That was a bit of a gamble, to say the least, on Sheridan's part. And still, with his reservations, Garibaldi, even though he's thinking that the Sheridan doesn't trust him anymore, he still followed orders and did what he was told to do. That's a positive in Garibaldi's favor. I was a little disappointed that he didn't show up in the subsequent encounter, or at least that there was a scene between him and Sheridan discussing why they were doing what they were doing. That was a little disappointing, but
yeah,
overall, Garibaldi's instincts are on point. He obviously knows that there's something up between the captain and Lorien, which we discussed last episode, and I was suspicious about that as well. And that revelation later on is borne out, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
What else I got about Garibaldi? His assessments of the situation Babylon 5 are facing is pretty funny, and I like that Susan says to him, says, "Boy, and I thought I was depressing."
Yeah.
I thought that was a great line. And underneath this all, you've got this subtext or hidden layer of, especially like that last shot when he's looking out at all the ships around Babylon 5. What is he really thinking of? Is he thinking as Garibaldi, or is he thinking as an operative of Psi Corps? But you got this cool little subtext going on in all the scenes actually with him. But at that particular moment, I thought it visually was really well represented by his gaze as he looked at all those ships and that. So I really liked his storyline in this episode, and I'll be interesting to see in the next episodes if his relationship with the Sheridan improves or not. And I guess the only thing that I was puzzled by was the lack of reaction from Franklin and Susan when they saw Garibaldi going off to do what he was going to do, and they weren't questioning the captain as to why he was basically seemingly sending him on a suicide mission. Mostly like 99% positive, one or two minor quibbles, but I thought the Garibaldi arc in this episode was quite strong.
Karen?
Okay, yeah. I loved all the Garibaldi scenes in this episode. Garibaldi does question it. No one else does, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I do that he questions it. And there's that kind of sandpapery thing between him and Sheridan. And I feel like he is Garibaldi, like in character, but in the words of Spinal Tap, turned up to 11.
Yeah.
He's a little over the top. And it hasn't been confirmed that he has this implant thing in him. They're just implying it to us.
No, they ruled that out. Franklin was checking for the scars, right?
No, that's different. That's the shadows taking him over. I'm talking about the Psi Corps, like you mentioned. That hasn't been confirmed, right?
No, we do not know. We know that he keeps having flashbacks.
Right. Of something being done to him.
And he's telling people, I can't remember. Why does everyone keep asking me that? I would tell you if I knew.
Right.
And
the assumption is that he doesn't remember, except for these flashbacks, and that maybe the Psi Corps has implanted him with whatever, like they did with, what's her name? Talia.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're assuming that, and I would think that that's a good assumption, in my opinion, and that has colored how I look at him. Not that I think he's bad. I don't. I feel like he's doing what he can to fulfill his obligations on the ship. So he goes ahead and he does this thing with Okesh, and knowing that they could all die, all 6 or however many of them there are there.
Yeah.
And so he takes
shirts on.
Yeah, he did, but no one died. No. And I feel like that was really brave of him to go ahead and do that instead of questioning it more, instead of saying, hey, is there anything we should know about him that we can use to defend ourselves? Because apparently Lorien knows all this stuff. And the scene between him and Zach was funny in a weird kind of serious way. Zach's telling him, he came to tell him that Franklin will clear him for duty, but Garibaldi kind of explodes on him before he could get that out. And then he's like, okay, so do you want to hear why I'm here?
Yeah. I thought that was nice.
It was cute. And it shows their relationship too, that he and Zach are on the same train. And I feel like everyone else is on a completely different train. They're on the speed train in Japan, and everyone else is on the people movers at Disneyland. So yeah, I love that. I love that he wants to get back to work. I feel like there's a lot of false flags they're throwing at us with them Franklin checking his neck to see if, and so we're supposed to go, oh, he's normal. He's real Garibaldi. And that I feel like they're throwing us something there. I liked his comments about how he and Sheridan were getting along and now not so much. Who the F is this Lorian person? What is going on? Why do I have to do all this stuff? And like I said, I feel like it's him amped up. Yeah. And I loved Susan's comments to him about, I thought I was depressing.
Yeah.
And she's just really taken by what's going on with him. But again, they don't feel concerned for him. And it bugs me. That one of my nits is that just Zach is the only one on his side. Who else is standing up for him? And Zach, apparently, are the only ones. And I have a question concerning this storyline, at least, where he is suspicious of Lorian. You don't have to answer it, obviously. Okay. We mentioned in the last talk we had that maybe Lorian has to be close to John, that they share. And as I'm watching this, there's nothing that usurps that assumption. And I understand he's giving him life force, but like everywhere John goes, he's either there or he can be close by. He's in his quarters and he's alone with Delenn, but is he like in the next door cabin? He goes to see Franklin. Is he out in the hallway? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a theory about that. That the Franklin thing is interesting. You know, maybe he was out in the corridor, but I think he was near Sheridan, not just for the life force energy thing, but also because Kosh was in there and he wanted to be there just in case Kosh.
Oh, I see. So
it'll be interesting to see now going forward, now that Kosh is gone, if Lorian has to stay around because
still sticks around. Yeah,
because he's repaired Sheridan as best he can. And Kosh is gone, and he no longer has to give part of himself to Kosh as well. So I think this character is basically going to fade into the background after this, but we'll see.
Yeah, I also, you mentioned before that the 20 years is significant, which kind of answers the question I had, which is Lorian just going to give him the rest of his life force and then die? But apparently not so much.
He's done what he's done.
Yeah.
And I think he says that. He says, I've done all I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But could he not channel all of his life force into John and then expire? That would be my question. But you did mention 20 years is significant, so maybe not.
Yeah, and the other question, right, is how about this machine? Remember we had that machine where they were able to give life, and that's John had done that as well. Him and Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
So has he already lost part of his life? And he's saying, I can't give life.
Right.
I can expand it, I can blow on it, but I can't make life. Like, we'll see.
And that machine also is at the expense of someone else.
Yes.
Like you said, has he lost some of his life force through that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting thing. You did confirm that 20 years is still in effect at that movie part. Yeah, that's an interesting implication because I didn't know that, of course, until now. Yeah. Okay. So that's it for me on that story.
Yeah.
Let me ramble some more.
No, you guys are doing perfect. I had the same feeling. Like, this seems to be in character with Michael, but it's also, he's a little more grumpy, right? Just a little more grumpy. And is it too much? And then it is interesting. He is there all the time. And in fact, John has to, and we'll get to that. We talked a little bit, right? But when they're explaining to Delenn that I got 20 years. That's it. What? No. And he has to go, can you give us a minute? And you would think, read the room, Lorian. Okay. If you're that old, should they need some privacy?
Right. Yeah. And also,
he's above such things.
Yeah.
doesn't that kind of answer the question as to why she tells him not to go to Zahadum?
Yes.
That she knows that he's going to limit his life. Not that he's going to die, but that he's going to limit his life.
Oh, I thought he was going to die. But
yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I think we're answering that question, though, with the...
And I'm also I do think it's cool that John's looking at this as, hey, I did die.
Mhm.
So we're playing on house money. But she's not feeling that way.
No.
And obviously Minbari live a lot longer. And when she felt that connection with him, it's implied that as they started, they discussed maybe, hey, look, I don't want to have to bury someone else that I love. Are you sure you're okay? And he goes, oh, yeah, humans can live to over 100.
Right.
So, yeah.
But it does raise an interesting philosophical point in that because we generally don't know when we're going to die.
Right.
That we take things for granted. And sometimes things happen where you're midstream and you've not done the things that you want to do with your spouse or loved ones and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so that's never resolved. Now, John and Delenn know how much time they have. So they have the opportunity to make the most of what they have, which is a luxury or I don't know if it's a luxury. I don't know what the right word would be, but it's a factor that most people in their relationships don't have. It's akin to a show knowing that it's got set number of episodes to tell a story and tell it, as opposed to one that doesn't know until the end of each season if the next season's going to be, if they're going to be renewed, which is like life, right? We don't know if we're going to be around the next year, whereas they know. So that allows them to maximize their relationship. So I think that's an interesting dynamic for their relationship. And I'm curious to see how they're going to act going forward, knowing that they have that the clock is ticking and they know that when it's going to end. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I think that's a very glass half full thought. And once again, I go back when we were talking 12 Monkeys and where our hero Cole was saying, if we were going to live forever, it wouldn't matter. And I sent you guys that link to the Jason Isbell song that says, knowing that this can't go on forever, likely one of us will have to spend some days alone. Maybe we'll get 40 years together, but one day I'll be gone or one day you'll be gone. So at least, and I still think to this day, one of the most powerful scenes of any book movie is in Neil Gaiman's Sandman when Death picks up the baby and the baby says, that's all. And she says, you got what everyone got, a lifetime.
Yep.
It just tore my heart, but it was true, right? So yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah, so good. So let's stick with this. Sheridan goes and buys a ring. And I think Miriam Farron played this great, right? You would think she'd understand a little bit about engagement rings, maybe picking up, but maybe that isn't. Who would she have talked to about it? Susan isn't going to go, hey,
who's married?
Look.
Yeah.
She's, who is this? So this confusion on her, and it's a ring for another ring. And I want you to marry me. And he says, as Lou said, right, I'm going to give everything I have to this life, no matter what time we have. I thought was very romantic, and I thought a great payoff for this ship that we've been a fan of. Karen, as our resident romance reader, what'd you think of this? Did you think it was a good payoff?
I did. I wouldn't call it a payoff, to be honest. I would call it culmination, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
A different step in their relationship. Just like in real life, getting a ring and getting engaged is just another step in your relationship. I did like that he said, I got it in the Zocalo, so we'll have to get a better one. But there's all crap
right
in the Zocalo. Um, I do think it's very optimistic of him as well, saying that there's going to be a good enough society afterwards that I'll be able to find something better for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very cool. I honestly, when I got my ring and when I hear about other people getting a ring, I didn't think about it as a ring for a ring, but that is a super romantic way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because women usually keep their engagement ring alongside their wedding band.
Yes, they do.
So it's like a step, like I said.
Yeah.
And there's so many steps in a relationship. You have your first date, you have your moving in together, you have your engagement, your wedding, your kid, your all this stuff. And this is them realizing they have so much time, which I mean, everyone has so much time. I know Jesse and I have a similar experience. I don't know about Lou. My husband had a heart attack a couple of years ago. And so that kind of solidified the thought that, wow, our time could be cut short whenever. And I know you have a similar thing in your life. Otherwise, people just go about their day not really thinking about they could die tomorrow. And them knowing that, I feel like that's going to it's going to turn up their relationship a little bit. How long are they going to wait to get married? Right after the war? Are they going to actually have a formal wedding? So I loved that we get to see another step in our relationship. I feel like it's been on fast forward, but now we know they're going to have to go on fast forward. So that's cool. And we also know that they have a kid. So that's cool as well. And I got a little tear in my eye when he explains to her about the ring. And also laughed because of that the ring is like essentially when people
jewelry maybe, or
when people get a ring out of those little machines and it's just a plastic ring with a candy on it or whatever. So I thought it was pretty cute.
Yeah, and that's why the Peter David episode where her hair's all messed up and they have the joke at the end about why am I cramping, and that's played for comedic effect, but it actually points out that she should have the ability to have children, and then we get the payoff. Yeah, so that's cool. Lou, thoughts?
I think Karen said it pretty well. I like that scene as well. The only, this is a minor niggle, but when he says, "Where did I put that ring?" and then he immediately goes to the chair and lifts up the pillow. Like I thought, wouldn't you look around the room a little bit first?
Right.
Or, I just thought like that was such a weird staging decision to go directly to that chair and lift up that pillow. Like it was just really. I thought that was weird.
Like maybe he did remember where it was. That was just him saying out loud.
On his way over to the chair, he's like, "Oh yeah."
I thought that was
sitting
so
there.
Weird.
Yeah,
but maybe that's just me. That's just one of those weird.
No, it was weird. You're right.
Okay, but
his jacket was on that chair, so it might have been it. But I'm just
And this is another weird thing, but I just think that him and Garibaldi both went to the barber because they both are sporting very chopped down haircuts, which was I don't know why that all of a sudden happened in this episode, but it was weird. So
they're streamlining.
So it is interesting to think that one of the other things he shows up one of the things Michael's worried about is this people are perceiving Sheridan as a godlike figure.
Yep.
And that never works out well, right?
Yep.
That actually, even though John is our hero, that makes a lot of sense that, wait a minute, are we sure we want that? So, that's really interesting.
Which, again, is mirrored in this episode, and it also has that meaning from the title, Apotheosis. So that was cool.
And I gotta jump way ahead to the YouTube channel where Texas was saying, I'm not sure what Lou was expecting for the react, and this is referring to the previous episode, for the reaction to Sheridan's return. He causes the crowd to go from near riot to dead silence just by showing up. Seems like a pretty significant reaction to me. But what was lacking in that shot for me, Texas, was a sense of a look of awe. And in this episode at the beginning when that woman fell, we got that look that wasn't
Yeah.
in the previous episode. So that's what I was missing. So I just wanted to bring that up because we were talking about it at this particular moment. So there you go, Texas. That's what I
All
was
right.
waiting
Yeah,
for. That
thank
look
you.
of awe.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And Jeff Conway plays such a great everyman. I love Zach is just that guy, right? He's trying to keep everyone together. He's worried about Michael. He's supportive of the captain. He truly is trying to keep everything rolling. And I love that him. So they're going to have all these refugees. Michael is the guy pointing out that there's not enough food and there's not going to be any space. They talk about Epsilon, the planet down there, which I
Finally.
thought, yeah, oh, we haven't talked about this planet at all. And now that don't you have to prove it to, don't you have to get approval to go down there? But I guess that's where I'm going to do that's a hand wave that they're going to do. Let's talk about the Kosh. Garibaldi does go talk to Okesh and he's no. And then they get their butts kicked, but he didn't kill anyone.
Mhm.
Then they had Lita, part 2. There's a piece of Kosh still in Sheridan. And it's like, what? How dare someone hold one of us captive? And he rushes off to do this. Karen, let's start with you. This is all a setup so they can try to kill this Vorlon. And they do that. So let's talk anywhere you want on that storyline.
Yeah, do they do that though? They play a part in it.
Yeah. You
I
think it's
get-
more Kosh?
Yeah,
what's left
100%.
of the old Kosh?
100% it was Kosh.
Okay.
But they had to get him there. So that was their way to get him there. Did Garibaldi have to go and try and expel him? Not really. It could have been done just by Lita saying he has part of Kosh in him and Ulkesh would have to go.
Interesting thought.
I think they were hedging their bets, saying that we got to get him here. So let's take every tack we can.
And I think it's to make him upset.
Right.
That was the reason why
Yep.
that so that he wasn't thinking, he was already upset. How dare these humans tell him what to do? And then when she comes there, he's already wound up is what I thought.
Right. Ramps it up another notch.
Yeah.
And that also makes him a little irrational that he doesn't suspect that he's walking into a trap.
Right. And also very arrogant.
Yep.
Vorlons are arrogant.
They're the
right?
worst.
Yes.
Yeah, they're dicks.
Yes, they are.
And I do have to say Kosh might not be the worst. The Ulkesh is definitely the worst.
Oh, yeah.
And having read some stuff, it was Kosh and Ulkesh that walked Sinclair into the palace on Minbari, Valen.
Oh.
It was those two in particular. So how did Ulkesh turn into this from that? I feel like that's interesting, but I doubt we're going to hear anything.
Or how did Kosh turn into what he was?
Right.
Was like the way Okesh was. It just because he was interacting with humans and came to like them, or
right? Yeah. How did they
split?
How did their past change so hard? I do feel like Ulkesh is the Rifa that he spurred on this change in. We know that he's been sending Lita out with a part of him inside of her. So is he planting these seeds to the Vorlon saying, we got to do this, we got to do that? And he is definitely the instigator in all of this. I feel like he is the common denominator in why they're attacking all these worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they're going to stop because he's gone. They're already on this path. And I feel like he is our analogy into what is going on with the Vorlons.
He's the face of the Vorlons.
Exactly. Yeah. And I have to say, I feel really impressed with that scene where he and Kosh tangle as their true selves. I thought, number one, that's really good special effects. And number two, it was interesting to see them not projecting a different image to people. I'm assuming that's actually their true bodies.
Mhm.
So that's cool that we got to see that. Like the shadows reveal that they look like bugs. And these two creatures reveal that even though they don't look like angels, they look pretty cool. That they're beings of pure light or whatever.
Pure energy.
You're right, like on Star Trek. But I really did appreciate that scene. For the time in the 90s, that's good. That's really good special effects. And even now, I couldn't find much fault with it. So very cool. And also the confirmation that their ship is alive and them fighting is most likely what caused it to blow up in the end. Just really cool scenes, I thought.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was.
it's go ahead.
I thought it raises an interesting question because Kosh and Okesh went outside the ship on their own. If they can do that, do they really need a ship? But maybe they can't travel faster than light. I don't know, but it was interesting. I think you raised excellent points about Kosh and Okesh representing conflicting views. And I just want to reiterate that I wonder if Kosh shared the same views as Okesh and something on Babylon 5 changed him. Because I do agree with you. I do think that Okesh is the face of the Vorlons, and he's representing what the mass majority of the. Because we don't know if I don't think they're a hive mind or anything, like they're not the Borg, but I assume that they're all on board with this offensive action that they're taking with all these worlds. So that's interesting. I didn't quite understand why Lorien had to give a little bit of himself to Kosh as well. Was that just to keep Kosh alive, or was he actually actively engaged in the conflict between the two of them? So that was a little unclear to me.
I get the feeling maybe it's that extra little umph to beat that, because a Vorlon is so powerful that they had to,
because it was only a part of Kosh. To
just like the a tipping point, right? The final straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Yeah. And again, then there was just one of these weird staging decisions where is it Talia? What's her name? Empath?
Talia. Yeah.
Talia. When she walks into
Lita, I'm sorry.
Lita.
Yes.
Lita. When she walks into Okesh's chamber, she's wearing the mask, but once she gets in the chamber, she takes off her mask. And then when she leaves, she puts it back on. Like, I'm going like, why did you take it? Why did you wear it in the first place if you're just going to take it off in this thing? He's still breathing that weird atmosphere. Because when Garibaldi went in there, he had to keep his mask on, and they were all choking when they left. So that was just
but she's got those gills going on.
Yes,
he's modified her.
And they don't, in case someone sees her,
they
don't want her.
All right,
to be seen. No. I think it's a fair thought.
Because I did see those gills working pretty hard. When
and so maybe that's the reason.
Another effect
why.
that was done.
Yeah,
agree.
I agree.
Yeah. I guess the question is, do Vorlons really die, or can they be killed? I don't know.
Yeah.
But based on what happened to the ship, we have to assume that is true. And now the only question I have is there a little bit of Okesh still left in Talia?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
What did you think of the special effects?
I thought they were really well done. I think that whether they had more money this season or not, but I just think in general the show just looks more polished overall. And the special effects haven't. I think there's been quite a jump since the third season. Especially from the second to the third, and then the third to the fourth. Or maybe we're just getting used to the look of the Babylon 5 universe as well. But I do think there's more polish. They're showing all these different ship types all the time, and they all look really cool. I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, we've come a long way from the praying mantis.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I hadn't thought about him in a while. Yeah, that we should not discuss.
I have nightmares.
To be discussed again, right? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought this was really well done. I do agree, a little nitpick could have been that it would have been nice to see, did we see Michael as part of the peep that's shooting the Okesh? And maybe it's just implied that he's there, Zach and him, it's everyone. And so now then this should really tick off the Vorlons, because if we had the balls to keep one inside you, which is not his choice. That had John Sheridan had no thoughts in that. Killing one of them should really tick them off,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
should be very much.
That's
Go
another
ahead.
thing I wanted to mention. The visuals on when they trapped Okesh on that plate and put the
Yeah.
electrical field around him remind me a lot of, if you've seen the original Thing, when they trapped the creature
Yeah.
in the electrical thing, or Forbidden Planet when they captured the id in that grid
Yeah.
as well. So
Yep.
I think that was an intentional nod to those previous things, but I don't know
Sure.
if JMS ever mentions that or references that at all. Or
So he sometimes does that. The other thing, one of the things that makes him grumpy is that, and he was very active on the message boards at this time, CompuServe and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And every once in a while would say, "Hey, did you get this idea from?" And he said, "Quit asking that question. The answer is no. I'm not the first person that has used this." Yeah, this, and everyone's, "Oh, were you deliberately looking for something from Lord of the Rings or something?"
Mhm.
And so I but I do think sometimes he will say that he was a consumer, still is, of science fiction
Mhm.
and fantasy. I'm sure that might be something.
There's
Yeah.
nothing new under the sun is
Yeah,
that
exactly.
quote
Yeah.
that people are gonna
No, I think no, I think that is a
It's
fair,
okay
it
to talk
reminds
about
me.
it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too.
I'll just
You know,
rephrase it. That scene reminded me of those other.
yeah, and I think that is, we talk about that a lot, where, especially early in this series, this reminded me of this Star Trek episode or this,
Yeah.
because, and that is a compliment, right?
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
this
Yep.
was something.
Sure.
All right. I think that wraps up the station,
Mhm.
right? I don't think, is there anything else at the station we need to visit about? I'm looking at my notes.
The stuff that Susan did with the communications on board the
Yeah,
Babylon
good
5.
point.
I don't think there's a lot to talk about there, but I think it's pretty cool that she is, and we know John gave her those responsibilities, being
Yeah.
a liaison, and that falls within her purview. But it was a little heart-wrenching to see her listing what had happened, and you can tell, I think it was John that said she looked scared. Was it Garibaldi or John?
John.
John
Okay.
said she's scared, and I've known Susan on and off for 10 years,
Yeah.
and I've never seen her.
So it was cool to see that
Yeah.
her under a stressful situation like that. I'm sorry.
I agree with you totally, Karen. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we constantly harp on show, don't tell, but sometimes for the economy of storytelling, you have to do some telling. And I thought that device was a great way to bring across the impact of such event that's taking across vast distances and involving so many players. I thought that was a really great way to do that. And it was reinforced by shots of showing how many ships were outside Babylon 5. So there was a bit of showing and telling mixed together with that. So I thought that was a great balance. And I thought that's a pretty economical way of handling such a large event in a compressed time field and giving us a sense of the scope of exactly what's going on. But yeah, I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, and John wants to save them all. I remember writing that down, and I was just looking at my notes, and Lauren says you can't, and John's, "I'm going to try."
Mhm.
So that is
Illusions of
going to
Godhood,
be,
maybe? No?
yes, a little bit.
Yep.
Or yeah, I think I'm not saying that Garibaldi is necessarily wrong, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to that sunny little Vista Centauri Prime. And we see Morden is looking better, not 100% yet, but he is starting to heal. He now looks like just a really sores versus the charred skin. And he is saying that the Vorlons have gone crazy. They are killing people everywhere. And Londo immediately, like, okay, we've got all these ships here. They're going to destroy us. We need to get rid of them. And Morden, in his arrogance, "Oh, they never attack you guys. You're too prominent." And at first, Londo thinks the Emperor, he's seen reason. No, the Emperor is just totally batshit crazy. Let the planet burn, and then in that Like a phoenix, I will arise from the fire into godhood. Karen, your turn to start. Let's visit about that.
No, it's Lou's turn to start.
Okay, then Lou, your turn. I'm sorry. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, thanks, Karen. I'm bearing in mind what you told us that JMS was writing the show with the mindset that this was the last season. So the Emperor's um, ultimate plan seemed a little out of left field, even given how batshit crazy he is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's in line with his character, but it was just sprung upon us pretty quickly. So I was processing that for the rest of the episode, that he was going down that route. But given that, I thought that Londo played it really well. He recovered pretty quickly from what was a pretty bad situation, and this really reinforces in my mind the idea of Nero fiddling while the city's burning storyline. And it's interesting to contrast these emperor's plan for godhood, where he's actively pursuing a course to get him towards godhood, or thinks that he's going to get towards godhood, whereas John literally fell into it. So I like that. I like that dichotomy between these two characters, and I'm just curious as to. I really feel like this whole Londo becoming emperor storyline is really coming to a head. Like, we basically got 7 days, so whatever Londo is going to do has to happen within the next week. Theoretically, by, if not the next episode, but maybe the episode after, he could be the new emperor if the things go the way they are going, unless somebody else is going to step in. But we haven't seen any other players, and Rifa's off the board. Yeah, things could progress very quickly, and my speculation about where Londo Jakar is going to lose his eye was borne out in this episode. Yep. So I'm patting myself on the back for that.
I patted you on the back as well when I saw it.
So as soon as he said, "I don't like the way he's looking at me," and I said, there we go. Yep. This is why. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing Londo and Veer's reaction to seeing Jakar with one less eye. So that will be interesting to see as well. But yeah, this whole section of the storyline for this season is probably the most fun to watch, and it's really allowing the actor that's playing the Emperor to chew up scenery, but in a way that works for that storyline. But we still get to see Londo at his strategic best. If nothing else of the character, I still admire his ability to think on his feet and to play three-dimensional chess. So that was enjoyable as well. And yeah, it was just really well done. And again, I have to comment on the set dressings and whatnot to make this palace look a lot bigger than what they're really doing, because it's probably just a really small part of a soundstage, like a corner or something like that. But no, it's well done. Though the courtyard shots outside the palace are probably the weakest special effects that consistently happen during the run of the series so far.
Karen?
Yeah, but that's no biggie because there's a lot of stuff going on there, and you can hand wave that.
Yep.
I do love how their palace looks. It's very Londo. When we first got to know Londo, we understand that his race is decadent. They revel in kind of that, it's whatever, the pleasure bot on Futurama, where they're sitting on the lounge and they're putting bonbons into their mouth, kind of thing, being waved by palm fronds. I get that feeling from those scenes, which is cool. And they really are playing into that kind of harem-ish feeling. His name is Wortham Krimmer, by the way, the guy who plays Cartagia, and I give him incredible props for his portrayal. I enjoyed the twistiness of that storyline. That Morden comes in, he reveals what's going to happen. Londo's digesting all this, and he says, "You can't be into this." And he says, "Nope, I'm not. Let's not send out ships. I'm playing him." And where he doesn't realize he's also going to get played. Right. There's this kind of betrayal upon betrayal. And I feel like Morden thinks he's getting one over on Cartagia.
Yes.
But Cartagia is not having it, even though he buys into it because he wants to be this god figure. I also love how, and we've mentioned this before, how Londo is playing into Cartagia's his wants and needs, his desires, where he says, who is going to celebrate you as a god if everyone is dead here? Where he realizes he's going to want all this praise and acclaim.
Yeah.
And that's what sways him into going along with Londo's plan. And it just shows that Londo is really smart. He's smart not to say anything. He's smart to pull back and assess and to actually come up with this plan, even though I don't think it's fully fleshed out yet, even in Londo's mind. But I do think he sees this as this is going to be the opportunity. And whether he uses Jakar, whether he contributes to Cartagia's death, whether he allows the Narn people to pull him apart like they did with Rifa, I just feel like he knows this is how it's going to happen. And he doesn't care how. It's just this is the place to get him away from his cabinet. And we also got his shadow cabinet.
Yes, we're going to talk about that in just a minute.
Wow. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I loved that. I love seeing how smart Londo is when Cartagia is, and of course you need to leave so that you can share. I see you. And Londo's ready. Of course not, Your Majesty. My place is at your side. No, I just totally.
I'm where you are, dude.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to sacrifice because for your greatness. And he plays on his ego, the Emperor's ego, and his delusions of grandeur perfectly. I do think that it was a great choice to have him have that short hair because he looks so menacing. And I'm not used to being summoned, Malari.
He's done that to Londo 2 or 3 times. Yeah.
And the whole arrogance of he is convinced he's right. And it's only fair that the people forever live in my heart. I can't do that. And that's, to get dark for a minute, you see that way too often is someone kills his family and then commits suicide.
Yep.
Right? And you just always why? Just one, I wish you wouldn't kill yourself, but why do that? Yeah. The idea is I can't leave them without me. So yeah, I just think amazing. Little background, Peter went to Joe and said, where do you come up with this stuff after reading the Shadow Cabinet? And they're watching it and it didn't quite work. And on the set, JMS said, offer him snacks. And if you notice, the heads are deteriorating. It stinks. He's doing that. And that's so creepy. Who was it? Oh, yes, you. Tell me again. And you're like, this guy's batshit crazy. Yeah. And if you were in doubt, you certainly aren't now. So
and I also need to mention, we were talking about Londo, I love that we get that interaction between him and John.
Yes.
Where he calls Babylon 5 to confirm it. This is him. My information is not reliable here.
Yeah. So, and the idea, he's probably calling collect.
Right?
Which
definitely
is way outdated reference now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know when the last time anyone has called collect, unless you're calling from a prison. Yeah, payphone maybe. Yeah. So either one of you, the Shadow Cabinet's thoughts. I just thought it was so creepy, so fun,
very Shakespearean.
Yes.
Yeah. And also absolutely. Game of Thronesian.
Yeah.
Which is also basically Shakespeare.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
So Lou, what's your deal with Londo? What do you think about that?
In what manner?
Because you didn't have a turn yet to talk about.
No, I did.
Centauri, did you?
Yeah, because he went first. Remember, you reminded me he went first?
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's correct.
No, that's okay. Yeah, no.
I admire his ability to think on his feet, but I still think the character is irredeemable.
Okay. It's going to be interesting to see that journey. So we're set where they're going to go to Narn 3 days there, 3 days back, a day for the trial. And I love Londo. It won't even take a day. His guilt is, and yes, the scene where he just keeps staring at me. What do you think? And Londo, oh, whatever you think, Your Majesty, and steps out. And oh, bad move, Londo.
Bad move, yeah.
And Peter Jurassic didn't have any dialogue in that scene, but his expression in his eyes was fantastic.
Yeah,
agreed.
And then when he sits there and we've already established the Emperor says when you're infallible, the problem is everyone else around you isn't, and so it makes things worse. And I love that. Take his eye out. Which one? Details. That one.
Eeny meeny.
Yes, it did look like he was doing eeny meeny, and we just get that door, and of course we don't hear a scream, but we now know why. As you said, Lou, good for you. It was there at the Emperor. And so we're set up.
So is Londo going to feel guilty about that? Because he could have suggested something to Cartagia, but he leaves it up to Cartagia to do something, and he ends up really hurting Jakar in the process.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I also thought you made a great point, Jesse, that we were, like when the door closes, we were kept on waiting for the scream. And then when it didn't happen, you go, of course, Jakar still wouldn't scream. And that made it even more impactful. So, yeah, great call.
Yeah. Anything we've forgotten? Anything else we need to cover? I can't think of anything. I'm looking at my notes.
No, I think we're good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Ratings. Karen.
I give it a 9 chyrons out of 10, and that's the text at the bottom of the report that Susan's getting with all that's a chiron.
All right, nice. Text. Okay, Lou?
I will give it 9 20-year guarantees.
Ooh, nice.
Better than mine.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 9 out of 10 engagement rings.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
I'm surprised Karen didn't pick that one, to be honest.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah. It was a given.
For the first time this season, the P-Fry rating is 8.78. And we were all heavier than that. Yeah,
very close.
Yeah, very close. Yeah. We've actually been pretty close together. Absolutely great. I think we got some feedback. Karen, you want to?
Okay, we got some feedback.
Yes, we did. We got 3 emails. From our standard. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah,
I'll start with David's. Hi, David. Ah, yes. Now the most mispronounced episode of the series, and sent even more to the dictionary to find out what it meant.
I resemble that remark. Thank you, David.
Apotheosis, everyone. We open with the PSA from Ivanova announcing the Vorlons have wiped up 2 more planets since the last episode. They still don't know how to deal with the situation. Best they can do is try to find a safe haven for those who have survived. Sheridan is becoming more messianic to the population on B5. Guess coming back from the dead has that effect on people. After saving the lady in distress, literally parting a sea of people, Lorianne remarks that he can't save them all. Sheridan grimly responds to, I can try. Is Sheridan believing that he has that ability? Garibaldi's upset that Sheridan has a new BFF and that everyone seems suspicious of him. You can tell things are about to blow up. Is this part of his programming, or is he just being a bit paranoid? The Cartagia and Morden inform Londo of the Vorlons destroying any world with a shadow influence. Morden asserts they would never destroy a world with 3 billion lives, especially if the Centauri surround the planet with their ships. Of course, Cartagia reassures Londo that he has no intention of doing that. Instead, he plans to let the Vorlons destroy Centauri Prime in order to celebrate his independent godhood. He invites Londo to his innermost sanctum to meet with his advisors, a row of disembodied heads he calls his shadow cabinet. Sickened by the sight, Londo can do nothing but listen to Cartagia talk about how Centauri Prime will end in fire, just as Kosh 1.0 told Turhan a couple of seasons ago. Snicks, anyone? I'm sure Jesse filled you in on this. The head, quote unquote, of Minister Dugari was the makeup mold of Andreas Katsoulis' head, leading Peter Jurassic to joke that even when he could steal a scene without actually being there. Okay, that's funny.
It is.
Yeah.
I did not bring it up because I knew he did an email, so I wanted to give him his moment. Yes.
Garibaldi is getting checked out by Franklin, is given the physical to go ahead. He's still having flashbacks to his missing time. As he was leaving, Sheridan enters to ask about his test results. Question: why hasn't anyone thought of having Lita scan Garibaldi? They've already done that before with Talia a couple of years before. And what were the tests Sheridan asked Franklin for? Testing for male pattern baldness? Once again, we see Ivanova broadcast more worlds have been destroyed, including some, quote, safe havens, unquote. We finally get some alone time with Sheridan and Delenn, where Sheridan tells her that the only reason he came back from the dead was his love for her. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was very sweet, too. As predicted by Garibaldi, the plan to evict Kosh Vader fails miserably. Lita arrives to tell him that Sheridan is going to act against him and that she knows who is holding Kosh 1.0 hostage. Enraged, Kosh Vader lets Lita lead him into Sheridan's trap, only becoming suspicious at the last seconds. The Vorlon picks a new target, Delenn. Sheridan takes the shot meant for her, and with Lorian's help, releases what is left of original Kosh to join the attack. They leave the station and enter the Vorlon ship, which quickly blows up, killing both Koshas. Finally, we see Londo using Cartagia's delusions against him, convincing him that the Narn would worship him if he executed Jakar on Narn. Obviously, he is setting him up, but what's the plan? Yeah, we talked about that. We wonder as well. We close with Cartagia complaining that he doesn't like how Jakar looks at him. Londo, preoccupied with his preparation, punts on the decision, leading Cartagia to decide on taking out one of his eyes. Thankfully, we close before actually seeing that. Question: is that one of the redemption points predicted by Lady Morella? Next week, we get to see things breaking bad for one character as Sheridan sets his plan into motion. Breaking Bad. Is someone manufacturing drugs? Does someone have cancer?
Crystal Blue Persuasion, right?
Crystal Blue Persuasion. Okay. So thank you, David. Awesome email.
Absolutely.
And now we'll go on to our ever friend, Texas Amlashak. So Sheridan's back and Lorian is here too. And that has Mr. Garibaldi concerned. Okay, Texas, I gotta say, concerned is putting it mildly.
Yes.
Yeah, concerned, yes, I get that. He's concerned about a lot of things, come to think of it, but that's just Garibaldi being Garibaldi. Except something seems a little off about it right now.
Yeah.
Regardless, he's still willing to throw himself on his sword when Sheridan asks him to see the Vorlon ambassador off station, which goes about as well as you'd expect. Then Lita comes in and drops something that the Vorlon finds intolerable. A human is keeping a Vorlon against his will. Intolerable, he puts that all in caps. And I'm shaking my fist.
Yes.
I didn't mention it last time, but the domestic violence analogy gets even more blatant, and the differences between him and Kosh become more distinct. Kosh treated her like an assistant, whereas his replacement treats her like a servant at best, though it's more like a slave. And it never seems to occur to him that his mistreatment would actually cause her to act against him. Not until it's too late, at any rate.
He is very they are very arrogant.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever sex the Vorlons are.
Yes.
Right. They seem very masculine to me, but that's me putting something on.
Yeah, absolutely.
That brings us to the Centauri. Londo wants to get the shadows off-world before the Vorlons arrive, but is stymied by Morden and Cartagia. Don't worry, though. Cartagia has a quote-unquote brilliant idea. See the severed head? Wait, it was actually this one. Had a wonderful idea. Just set the whole thing on fire as a pyre upon which Cartagia will ride to godhood. It's been commented that Peter Jurassic has this way of acting with just his eyes. Yeah, Lou mentioned that. He somehow manages to convey all his emotions through them. And boy, do we see emotion in Londo's eyes well before he pulls out that handkerchief to try and stop the smell, which Cartagia is not bothered by in the slightest. It puts more pressure on Londo since now Centauri Prime is facing a time crunch. And Sheridan won't be able to help, and let's hear it for jokes. Anyone born in the 21st century is too young to understand. So he strokes the Emperor's ego hard and manages to convince Cartagia that he needs to hold Jakar's trial on Narn. It's only right that the others be allowed to bask in the glory of his presence. And so they all go off to Narn. And Lou was right about Jakar's eye, except that it wasn't part of the torture regime. It was just on a whim. Same deal.
Come on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he's picking nits. And then there's the revelation about Sheridan's life, but I think that scene speaks for itself, and this is long enough as it is. Until next time, remember what, for it is the stuff of legends.
Always love that Texas, he throws us a little hint.
David's doing that too.
Yes,
so.
David is too. I love both of that. One of the things that I wonder, I still love Robert Asprin's myth books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if either one of you have read those. They're very funny, Lou. They are, Robert Asprin did, basically, he took the tropes of fantasies, like a young kid being chosen to be a wizard apprentice, and turns it on its ear and makes it funny. But in the very first book, because he thought it was just going to be a lone book, he made up fake quotations as the head of every chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then once he started, he says that ended up being almost harder than actually writing the book, is coming up with the fake quotations.
I bet.
So I wonder if it's sometimes harder. Oh, what clue do I give than actually just sending us feedback
without giving anything away? Or
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they do a great job with that.
Good. I love it. Yeah, because I get it after I watch the episode, but right now I have no idea what's going to happen.
Exactly. Yes.
So yeah, that's cool. So now Nathan.
Yes.
So Nathan, whose last name starts with an S, with an
Bollier.
L. Sorry. Okay, here's my demo, my blooper reel right here. Nathan says, "Hey guys, finally the true face of Vorlons. Back when the episode came out, there was no tentacle porn, an explosion of Lovecraftian monsters. So the revelation that they are some strange sea creatures, in addition to being just plain evil genociders, was really shocking. Here's my aside. Don't look up tentacle porn. Trust me, you don't want to know.
Yeah,
even more shocking.
Too late.
Oh, yeah, don't do that. I'm very sorry for anyone that does. Yeah. It's called hentai, by the way.
Yeah.
Even more shocking was the fact that Kosh died after the show dangled his survival in front of us for 10 episodes. Turns out he was a good guy in the end. Probably the only regret I have is that the sounds they produce are not the same musical voices we hear when they spoke while being in their exosuits. Don't know why. It is their voices. I think they're disguising their voices, though, right? When they're in the exosuits.
Yeah.
But why would they have to?
Because.
Just 'cause?
Why do they have to do anything that they do? I wonder what you think about Vorlons now. It was really hard for me to reconcile the fact that they seem to be even more monstrous than shadows. Destroying whole planets kills many more people than instigating wars. And once again, show that they were duplicitous, manipulative assholes towards younger races. Yep, I said they're the worst. Cartagia now makes much more sense, even though he's still completely mad. But there's a system in his madness. Before this episode, he was just an unhinged sadist to me, and I didn't quite understand why he was called insane. A bit of talking with people's heads didn't quite ring true to me. Maybe it was an act, but deciding to sacrifice Centauri Prime to become a god is quite insane in all regards. Another devastating thing besides Kosh's apparent death was Sheridan's 20 years. I couldn't get over it. I kept thinking, if Lorien gave him those 20 years, why can't he give him more towards the end of this period? Doesn't quite make sense with regards, Nathan. Yeah, that was my thing. Why can't he
Yeah, I
do a
think,
little bit more?
yeah, I think that's a fair thought.
He said he was at the end of his life,
Yeah.
Lorianne, so why can't he just sacrifice the rest of
John
himself? But
Coffey.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You've already mentioned, talk to me, anything else that we need to cover on the YouTube channel?
Yeah, a couple of good comments here. John Austin says Veer is a Centauri who does not want to annihilate all Narns, as shown by Abraham Lincoln. All right.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry. This is for episode 3, the summoning. FSM Dog says, "'Tis but a scratch. I was dead, but I'm better now. I found it funny."
Yes.
And Iffy FSX says, "Remember when you thought Rifa was the worst?"
Yeah.
Yeah. He's dead now. We have to have a new one.
Yeah.
Like FSM Dog's comment, it does remind me of the Black Knight
Yep.
from
Mhm.
Money
Yes.
from
Scratch.
Sun. It's
Yeah.
just a flesh wound.
Yep.
And I
That's
think we
it.
talked about that, right? The
Yeah.
Not Dead Yet from Spam a
Bring
lot.
out your dead.
Yes.
Well, also
Yeah.
the Holy Grail.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yep.
Yes, I was just thinking of the song "I'm Not Dead Yet."
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They're
very cool.
silly English Kniggets, and we got those in another episode.
We did. If someone wants to give us feedback, Lou, how can they find you?
They can find us at Lou's Reviews on YouTube, where you'll find this podcast, along with a host of others, including our JKL Media podcast, where we just recently did 12 Monkeys, and we're just taking a breather, holiday breather. Maybe in the new year, we'll tackle something new. Otherwise, I have my writers podcast as well as my Stephen King podcast episodes there. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma, SYTSMA.
Spoiler
And-
alert, there might
and-
be a new Stephen King episode.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes. And Karen?
You can email us at b5podcast@gmail.com. Okay. JKLM. Is there an M?
Well,
Okay.
the JKL Media.
What, Jesse, what's it?
I'm looking. It is JKLB5
Oh.
podcast@gmail.com. I do not
Right.
have an M.
Okay.
So Jesse, Karen, Lou, B5 podcast@gmail.com.
Thank you. I'm sorry I muddled that up.
No.
And
We'll clean it up in post.
no, we
I
won't.
muddied
We'll
it
probably
further.
leave it in.
Yes.
And I am at Elveria, Eleveria, on the social medias. And you can also find me at my blog, alliestuff.com. And the landing page there has a bunch of stuff that might interest you.
Did you say ELE? I thought it was ALE.
Aleveria.
Okay. I'm pretty sure you said ELE.
Did I? Okay. Aleveria.
Lou will have to edit out. Charlie is sharing at the barking at the shadows because as I'm recording, the sun's coming through the blinds, and every time I move my hand, he thinks something's moving.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
so
no.
that's Charlie.
Let that
Is
shadow
just like,
play in.
yeah,
Yeah, my cat likes playing with
And
the
Charlie's
shadows
is
as
Jesse's
well.
dog, by the way.
Yes.
For the uninitiated.
Charlie, chill. All right,
My cat likes to join the podcast,
This is,
so
man,
it's
I
haven't
should
seen her
post
today.
this. I
No.
should post this unedited somewhere because this was just a wheels off episode. It was so
yeah,
much fun.
I love it.
Yeah. It's been fun. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on X, aka Twitter. You can hear me. Charles and I are talking with Nick, DJ Nick, the Doctor Who specials, and we had a great time talking about the first one and with the return of the meat. And we are recording this week Wild Blue Yonder, which I did not enjoy as much as the first one.
Just aired
But-
last night, right?
Yes, it did
Yeah.
air last night as we're recording this. So you can check that out. Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. And we will be back in 2 weeks. Next week, I am out of town. So we are taking a break. So in 2 weeks, we'll be back to talk The Long Night. In the meantime, thank you guys for listening. Please go and rate and review the podcast wherever you get your episodes. A 5-star review and rating would mean the world for us. It would just help us celebrate a great Christmas. So thank you, Karen.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Lou. Thank
most
you,
welcome.
listeners. And everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And scene.